started like any other Thursday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through a stack of mail and clearing out my email inbox while waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. Just the usual stuff, junk mail, store coupons, a reminder from the dentist I kept putting off. I wasn't really paying attention, just clicking through until one subject line made me stop cold. "You're invited, a night to remember." I almost deleted it. I really did. It looked like one of those generic promotional blasts. But something about the sender caught my eye. Events by Laurel. That name sounded familiar. Rachel, my wife, had mentioned them once when she was planning a holiday party for the salon. Said they were classy, handled upscale events, small weddings, things like that. Curious, I clicked. It was a formal invitation. Deep green and gold design, elegant script. The location listed, Silver Oak Estate, a vineyard about 30 minutes outside of town. Dress code, formal. Live jazz, a catered dinner, champagne reception. The kind of event Rachel would love. But what really grabbed me was the last line. Hosted by Rachel Morgan, celebrating a beautiful new chapter with those who matter most. I froze. Rachel? She hadn't mentioned a single thing about this. Not a word. At first, I thought maybe it was something for the salon, a client appreciation night or a brand relaunch. But then I saw the date. Saturday, April 12th. That was this weekend. I stood and walked over to the fridge where we kept our calendar. Everything Rachel did was on there, her yoga classes, hair appointments, weekend plans. Neat handwriting in purple ink. But Saturday, completely blank. I walked upstairs and found her sitting at her vanity, brushing out her hair. "Hey," I said casually, leaning against the doorframe. "Anything going on this weekend?" She looked up, surprised. "This weekend? No, not really." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just figured I might get a jump on the lawn, maybe detail the truck." She smiled. "That sounds like a plan. Hope it doesn't rain." That was it. No mention of a party.
No vineyard.
No event. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat in the dark with that invitation open on my phone. I zoomed in on the header again. A beautiful new chapter. Something wasn't sitting right. If it was a work thing, why hide it? Why send out formal invites and not even mention it to me? I wasn't paranoid by nature. Rachel always liked having her own space, her own projects. But this felt different, calculated. By the time Saturday rolled around, I made up my mind. I shaved, ironed a shirt, even wore the navy blazer Rachel got me for our anniversary last year. I figured if it was some surprise event, for me, for the salon, whatever, I'd play along. Bring a bottle of champagne and smile. She always liked big gestures, the spotlight. I never needed all that, but I never tried to take it from her either. I pulled up to Silver Oak Estate just before sunset. The golden light hit the vines in that perfect California way, soft and warm. The driveway was lined with string lights, and valet attendants were already taking keys from guests in tuxedos and evening gowns. I handed over my keys, took a breath, and stepped inside. The main hall was stunning. Everything looked like it had been pulled from a wedding magazine. Candles, flowers, a jazz trio playing softly in the background. Laughter, clinking glasses, perfume in the air. Perfect evening. But the second I stepped in, I knew something was off. People looked at me like I didn't belong. They gave those short, awkward smiles. The kind that say, "Do I know you?" but not in a welcoming way. A few faces I recognized from Rachel's salon gave me sideways glances, then turned away like they'd seen something uncomfortable. And then I saw it. A large sign by the entrance, framed in gold. A new beginning, celebrating Rachel and Tyler. Tyler? I stood there cold all over. Rachel was standing across the room beneath a flower arch, in a dress I'd never seen, holding a glass of champagne, smiling beside a man who wasn't me. And I finally understood. This wasn't a business dinner. This was an engagement party. And I wasn't supposed to be there. I must have stood there for a full minute, holding that bottle of champagne like it meant something. Like it still mattered. Like I still mattered. Rachel turned her head and saw me. The moment our eyes met, her entire face changed. Not surprised like someone who forgot to tell you something, but stunned like someone who just saw a ghost walk in. She whispered something to Tyler, the man beside her, and quickly stepped down from the arch, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. She moved fast, weaving through the crowd, careful not to draw attention even though a few guests had already started to murmur. When she got close, her voice dropped to a hush. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" I looked her in the eye. "I got an invitation." Her lips parted like she was going to speak, but no words came. She looked around, then leaned in close. "You weren't supposed to." I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. "That's what you're going with?" "Please," she whispered, her tone urgent. "Not here. Let's talk outside." I followed her through a side door onto the patio, where it was quieter. The sunset painted the vineyard in orange and purple, but I didn't care. All I could see was her. "Rachel," I said, voice low, steady. "What the hell is going on?" She wrapped her arms around herself, like she was cold. "It's complicated." "No," I said. "It's really not. That's an engagement party, and you're wearing a ring." "It's not official," she said quickly. "It's just, you lied to me." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't deny it. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. She hesitated, then answered without looking at me. "About 9 months."
Hier.
9 months? You've been cheating on me for almost a year. "It wasn't like that," she said. I took a step closer. "You planned this. You threw a party to announce a new life with another man, while we're still married. And I found out because of a misfired email." Rachel looked like she wanted to crawl out of her skin. "You were never supposed to see that." "You keep saying that like it makes it better," I said. "You were hoping to slide into a new chapter without the inconvenience of explaining yourself. That's not a mistake, Rachel. That's betrayal." She wiped at her eyes, but still no tears fell. "I didn't want to hurt you. You just didn't want to deal with me," I said. "You figured by the time you made it public, I'd already be gone." She didn't deny it. I glanced at her ring again. Simple, white gold, not flashy. The kind of thing she'd always said she hated. Too plain, she once called that style. I guess her taste changed with her company. "You used my name to fund your salon," I said. "You used my credit, my savings, my time." Her voice shook. "That business was for both of us." "No," I said. "It was yours, and I backed it because I believed in you, because I trusted you." She closed her eyes. "And now," I added, "I see it clearly. You didn't want a husband. You wanted a stepping stone." "Daniel, please." "No more lies," I interrupted. "Not tonight. You made your choice. I'm just here to see it for what it really is." She looked at me, finally letting the mask fall. "Are you going to make a scene?" "No," I said. "You don't get that excuse. I'm not going to storm in there and tell everyone what you are. I'm just going to leave, with the truth." "Then why come at all?" I looked her dead in the eye. "To remind you who helped build the life you're now trying to erase." She had nothing left to say. I turned and walked away from the vineyard, the party, the fairy tale she tried to craft without me. The bottle of champagne was still in my hand. I handed it to the valet and muttered, "Wrong party." He gave a small nod and didn't ask a thing. By the time I got back in my truck, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't heartbreak. It was clarity. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the garage with the lights off, the hum of the fridge inside the house muffled by the walls. An old fan spun lazily overhead, stirring the warm night air as I sat beside my workbench with a cold beer in my hand and a head full of noise. I wasn't angry. Not in the way people imagine. Not fists through walls shouting at the sky angry. I was hollow, numb, staring at tools I hadn't used in months and thinking about all the things I missed. Not just the signs but the moments. The small clues that seemed insignificant at the time. New perfume, later nights, the way she stopped laughing at my bad jokes, the way she started double-locking her phone. The worst part wasn't that Rachel had cheated. The worst part was that she had planned it. She built this new life down to the guest list while still waking up in our bed, using our mortgage, and calling me her husband in front of people who probably already knew the truth. And I'd been funding the whole charade. Around 3 a.m., I went into the house and unlocked the file drawer in our shared office. She never paid much attention to it. Always joked about how I kept everything in paper form, leases, contracts, tax returns. Said I was old-fashioned. Said I should get with the cloud. Funny thing about paper, though. It doesn't lie. It doesn't delete. It doesn't get hacked or misplaced in a digital folder. I pulled out a folder labeled Radiance Hair and Style and began flipping through everything I'd signed, printed, and saved from the moment Rachel first dreamed of opening her own salon. There it was, the lease agreement signed by me because my credit score made the deal possible. The equipment purchase agreements, covered by personal loans taken out under my name. The business registration, filed under a partnership agreement through a holding company I created years back when I helped a buddy with his gym. She never asked what Morgan Equity Group LLC was. She just signed where I told her, because she trusted me. And now the irony cut sharper than any betrayal. She signed away 49% of her business to me, not as Daniel Morgan, her husband, but as the managing member of a company she thought was some anonymous investor. She used to brag about that, told her friends she was so smart for securing startup funding without giving up majority control. Only she did. And she had no idea. By sunrise, I was already in motion. I called Chris Bennett, an old friend from high school who became a corporate attorney in town. We hadn't talked in a while, but he picked up after 2 rings. "Dan," he said, still groggy. "What's going on, man? You okay?" "I need a meeting," I said. "Today. It's business. And personal." By noon, I was in his office, laying out everything, the paperwork, the email, the truth behind Rachel's surprise engagement party. He flipped through the folder in silence, nodding slowly. "You're holding a straight flush," he said finally. "You realize that?" "I don't want revenge," I said. "I just want my share. And a clean exit." He nodded again. "We'll file a motion. Start with an audit of the business finances. If she's done anything shady with the books, even if it's just overpaying herself or funneling money to this Tyler guy, you're entitled to your cut. And then some." I leaned back. "I'm not looking to take it all." "You don't have to," he said. "We'll let the numbers speak. She's about to learn what hiding behind a brand costs when the foundation belongs to someone else." Back at home, the house felt different. Empty, but not in a sad way. Just honest. No more pretending. No more waiting for her to walk in and pretend everything was okay. She had walked out long before the party. I just hadn't seen it. But now I saw everything. That afternoon, I drove down to Radiance Hair and Style. Not to confront her. Not to throw a scene. Just to walk into the place I helped build and take a long, quiet look at what my trust had created. It was Sunday, so the salon was closed. No lights, no blow dryers humming, no overpriced candles burning in the corners. Just silence and the faint scent of hair product lingering in the air. I used the spare key she left in the kitchen drawer months ago, the one she probably forgot I still had. When I stepped inside, it was like walking into a showroom. Gold-framed mirrors, velvet chairs, rows of product on glass shelves. The same luxury vibe Rachel had obsessed over. And it was spotless, perfectly curated for her image. The brand, the fantasy. But standing there in the middle of it, I didn't feel impressed. I felt resolved. Because no matter how good it looked, no matter how shiny or filtered it appeared online, I now knew exactly how fragile it all was. Every square inch of that place, the furniture, the decor, even the espresso machine behind the counter, was traceable to a paper trail with my name on it. She thought she could build something without me. But she didn't build this without me. She built it with me, and then tried to erase me before it opened to the public. I didn't touch anything. Didn't need to. Just walked the perimeter, checked the back office, took a few pictures for record-keeping, and locked the door behind me. Back home, I poured myself a coffee, sat at the table, and stared at the ceiling for a while. There was no rage anymore. No burning questions. No desperate search for answers. There was only truth. Rachel had made her decision. Now it was my turn. The next day, Chris filed the audit request. By midweek, we had confirmation from the county clerk that Morgan Equity Group LLC had legal standing to request a full review of the business's finances. The paperwork was formal, clean, emotionless, but its impact would be anything but. Rachel would receive the notice in days, delivered not to our home, but directly to the salon in her professional name, Rachel Grace Morgan. The same name she'd plastered all over her branding, wanting to sound sleek and elegant. Not Rachel Morgan the wife, but Rachel Grace the boss. She thought separating her life from mine would be simple. But business, unlike love, doesn't run on feelings. It runs on documents. I didn't tell her about the audit. I didn't tell anyone, really, except Jake, the owner of the Iron Tap, and the closest thing I had to a best friend since high school. We grabbed a beer after work on Friday, and I gave him the short version. His eyes went wide after I told him about the engagement party. "Damn," he muttered. "She really thought you'd never find out?" "She counted on it," I said. "That's what hurts the most. She counted on me disappearing before the truth showed up." Jake nodded slowly. "So what now?" I finished my drink. "Now she finds out what it feels like to be written out." "She doesn't know you own part of the salon?" "Not a clue," I said. "She thought it was outside funding. Some investor who didn't care." Jake shook his head, letting out a low whistle. "You're playing the long game." "I'm playing the fair game," I corrected. "She cheated in secret. I'm telling the truth in public. But I'll do it with paper, not punches." That weekend, Rachel didn't come home. She didn't call either. And I didn't reach out, because I had nothing left to ask her. I'd already seen the answers with my own eyes, under the arch beside another man, in a ring she didn't bother hiding. Now I wanted her to see something too. What happens when the man you tried to erase steps back into the picture with receipts? Monday morning came like any other, early, quiet, ordinary. But this time, I knew something extraordinary was about to happen. Not for me, I'd already made peace with the truth. But for Rachel, today would be her first real glimpse at what it meant to live in the light she worked so hard to avoid. I got the confirmation text from Chris just before lunch. "Delivered. Signed for by front desk. Clock starts now." That was all I needed. The audit request had officially landed at Radiance Hair and Style. It was now part of public record.
No hiding, no rewrites.
The spotlight was turning, and for once it wasn't flattering. I didn't hear from her that day, or the next, but on Wednesday my phone buzzed twice. Both times, her name on the screen. Both times I let it ring. She didn't leave a voicemail. She didn't need to. By Friday, word had started to get around. Small towns aren't built for secrets. Especially not when the woman who built her reputation on image and positive energy suddenly finds herself under legal scrutiny. You can't post Monday motivation quotes while ignoring a forensic audit of your business. The cracks began to show. Jake texted me a photo someone had taken at the salon. Rachel sitting alone at the front desk, phone to her ear, shoulders tight. The caption read, "The Queen of Radiance isn't shining so bright anymore." I didn't laugh. I didn't feel vindicated, but I did feel calm. This wasn't about humiliating her. It was about truth, finally and publicly being acknowledged. That evening, I took a drive past Silver Oak Estate, the place where her new chapter had launched. The parking lot was empty now, the string lights still strung but turned off. I pulled over and just sat in the truck for a while, remembering how surreal it all felt when I walked into that party. I wasn't angry at myself anymore. I wasn't embarrassed for not knowing sooner. I was proud, not for what I'd done, but for what I didn't do. I didn't scream. I didn't shatter glass or burn bridges. I walked out with dignity and returned with documentation. And now the silence was doing all the talking. By the next week, the real unraveling began. I heard it from Danielle, one of Rachel's former clients and, coincidentally, my cousin's friend. She stopped by the shop for an oil change and dropped the news casually while sipping a Coke. "I don't know what happened," she said, "but something's up over there. My appointment got cancelled last minute."
No explanation.
And one of her stylists left. No goodbye post, no notice. Just gone. I nodded, saying nothing. Let it spread. Let the silence do the slicing. Rachel didn't know how to live without control. Her image, polished, curated, perfectly branded, was everything. But now the whispers were louder than her filters. The trust she'd built in the community was starting to erode, and she had no script to fix it. That weekend, she showed up at the house. I wasn't surprised. I was out back, organizing tools in the shed, when I heard the car door shut. She didn't knock. She stood at the back gate, coat wrapped around her, a manila envelope clutched in her hand. "I need to talk," she said. I met her at the gate but didn't open it. She held out the envelope. "What's that?" I asked. "Financials. The salon's books. Every record," she said. "I want you to see that I wasn't hiding money. I didn't cheat you financially. You cheated everywhere else," I said flatly. She swallowed. "I know. I took the envelope, still not opening the gate. She stared at me for a long second. You could have destroyed me publicly. I didn't need to, I said. You're doing a fine job of that yourself. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't cry. Not for me. For her reflection. For the image slipping through her fingers. I thought I could control the story, she whispered. I didn't realize the story would control me. You should have written a better one, I said. One that didn't begin with betrayal. She turned and left without another word. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like the one who'd been left behind. The following week was quiet, but not in the peaceful kind of way. It was the silence of shifting ground, like everyone in town was just starting to notice that something was off and didn't know whether to say it out loud yet. I didn't have to look for updates. They came to me. First, a text from Cole, my attorney. Short and straight to the point. Rachel's CPA reached out. She's nervous. Wants to meet. I didn't reply right away. I knew that was coming. When someone builds a business on a story that's only half true, panic sets in the moment someone asks for receipts. Rachel's confidence wasn't cracking. It had already cracked. Now it was crumbling. Later that same day, I stopped by the hardware store, and one of the clerks, guy named Marvin who always flirted a little too much with Rachel back in the day, leaned on the counter and said, "Hey, is it true she's in trouble?" I raised an eyebrow. "Who?" He gave a knowing smirk.
Small man.
"Half the town's talking." I didn't answer, just paid for my sandpaper and left. But inside, I knew what that meant. The whispers were turning into conversations. Radiant's hair and style, the golden goose of downtown, was starting to look like it might not make it to the end of the season. And when a business built on social currency starts to lose its reputation, the fall comes quick. I heard from Jake the next morning. He owns the Iron Tap, the bar where Rachel used to host monthly ladies' night events. He texted me after a meeting with his event coordinator. She canceled all future bookings. No reason given. Just done. A day later, another stylist left. Then another. By Thursday, Rachel had locked her comments on the salon's Instagram page. By Friday, she stopped posting entirely. I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. This wasn't about kicking someone when they were down. It was about finally watching consequences catch up to choices. That same week, I got another call from Cole. "She's not contesting the audit," he said. "We're moving to the next phase. You'll be entitled to 49% of the business valuation as of the last fiscal year. If the salon closes, we'll move to liquidation." I nodded slowly. "And if she tries to transfer assets?" "She can't," he said. "Banks already flagged the account after a backdated transaction. Everything's being monitored now." "She say anything?" I asked. Cole hesitated. "Just that she didn't think you'd take it this far." That made me laugh. Not out of bitterness, just disbelief. "She threw a party to celebrate a life that didn't include me," I said. "And she's surprised I didn't stick around to watch the toasts?" That evening, I drove past the salon one more time. Parked across the street, same as before. Inside, I saw her sitting alone in her office, hunched over papers.
No stylists.
No music, just her, looking like someone who bet big on an image and lost everything trying to protect it. I didn't get out, didn't need to, just watched for a minute, then drove off. The truth was catching up, and it had my name written all over it. Back at home, I poured a drink and walked out to the back porch. The sun was setting, the wind soft through the trees, and for the first time since that night at the vineyard, I let myself feel something different. Relief, not because I'd won. This wasn't a game, but because the version of me who used to chase closure, he was gone. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need to fix anything. She made her guest list, and now, she was finally living with the fact that I wasn't on it. By the following week, things had taken a sharp turn. Not for me, but for Rachel. I hadn't said a word about her to anyone. No Facebook posts, no cryptic quotes, no whispered stories at the bar. I didn't need to, because truth, once set loose, has a habit of finding the ears it needs to reach. People were talking. Not loud, not dramatic, just in that quiet, certain way small towns do when something starts to smell wrong. A friend of mine who runs a local boutique, she used to stock hair products from Rachel's salon, sent me a message out of the blue. "Hey, just so you know, Rachel stopped by asking if I'd still carry her stuff. I said I needed time to think about it. Didn't feel right after what I heard. I thanked her, but didn't ask for more. That was the pattern now. People were choosing their distance from Rachel without me saying a word. She tried to post a comeback on Instagram, something about resilience and learning through fire, but the comments were disabled within hours, and by the next morning the post was gone. Meanwhile, Cole had the paperwork moving fast. We were already prepping for the final valuation. Radiant's hair and style was in freefall. Client bookings were down. Stylists had scattered. And Tyler? According to someone I trusted, he hadn't been seen in town for over 2 weeks. Just vanished.
No goodbye. No closure.
I suspected he saw the smoke and didn't want to wait around for the fire. Rachel had picked flash over foundation, and now she was standing in the ashes, alone. Friday morning, she showed up at the house again. No warning. Just knocked on the front door with that same manila envelope in hand, like she thought maybe this time she could rewrite the ending. I opened the door but didn't step aside. She looked different now, less polished, fewer layers. Her makeup wasn't perfect, her nails weren't fresh. Her eyes, they looked older, tired, not from age but from realization. "Can we talk?" she asked. "You already said everything you needed to," I replied. She shifted. "I brought updated numbers. I'm not hiding anything." "I never said you were," I said. "The audit will show that." "Daniel," she whispered, "I don't know what to do." I crossed my arms. "You did what you wanted to do. Now you're just dealing with what comes next." "I thought Tyler would be here for this," she admitted, voice cracking. "But he's gone. Just gone." I said nothing, because what was there to say? She bet on a man who saw her as an accessory, not a partner. And when things got messy, he slipped out the back door. "He told me I was too complicated," she said. "Too dramatic, that I made everything about image." I tilted my head. "Did he lie?" She blinked. Tears welled in her eyes, but still didn't fall. "I don't even know who I am anymore." I let that hang in the air a moment, then replied, "That's because you built your identity around attention, not honesty." She nodded slowly. "I know you hate me." "I don't," I said. "I stopped giving you that much space in my life." She took a step back, almost like my calm was harder to face than any shouting would have been. "I thought you'd break down," she admitted. "Get loud. Show up angry. Try to shame me." "You thought wrong," I said. "You didn't plan for the version of me that would hold the line. That would let the truth do the work." She stood there in silence for a long second. "What happens now?" "We finish the separation," I said. "Quietly, legally. You keep what's left of your name. I take what's owed. And that's it." She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. Instead, she turned and walked back to her car. And as she drove away, I realized something else. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt peace. Because the worst part of betrayal isn't the pain. It's the silence afterward, when you finally realize the person you trusted never intended to take you with them. But the best part is learning that you never needed them in the first place. It all came to a head 2 weeks later. Chris called me on a Thursday morning, right after I opened the shop. "Daniel," he said, straight to the point, "it's done." I wiped my hands on a rag and leaned against the counter. "How bad?" "Depends on which side you're looking from," he said. "The books are clean, technically." But she blurred lines. "Personal purchases listed under business expenses. Unreported cash payments. It won't trigger criminal charges, but the IRS won't like it. And my share. You're entitled to 49% of net assets, which will finalize through liquidation." With the business losing income and 3 stylists gone, she has no choice but to sell. There's nothing left to salvage. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of it settle. "And Tyler?" Chris actually laughed. "There's no trace, no employment records.
No contracts.
She was paying him under the table, which means if she tries to blame him, she's only exposing herself further." It was done. The story she tried to rewrite, without me, without consequences, was being printed in black and white across legal forms, business records, and tax filings. And she couldn't erase a word of it. That night, I drove out to the salon. Not to gloat, not even to confront, just to see it for what it really was one last time. I parked across the street and watched from the cab of my truck. The parking lot was empty except for Rachel's car. The lights inside were still on, but dim. I could see her through the front window, sitting on the floor with her back against the wall, staring at nothing.
No clipboard.
No client. No ring. Just silence. The empire she'd built on appearances was finished. Not because I tore it down, but because she built it on stolen ground. She never imagined I'd use my name. She never thought I'd come back with receipts. She believed, to the very end, that I was the kind of man who would just vanish. And now I was the reason she'd have to explain to the bank, the tax office, and every former client why Radiance Hair and Style was closing its doors. 2 days later, the liquidation notice was posted on the front door. Permanently closed. All assets under review. A friend texted me a photo of it. Another sent me a message. Wow, she didn't see that coming. No, she didn't, because in her version of the story, I was already gone before she announced her next chapter. But what she never expected, what people like her never plan for, is what happens when the man they dismissed decides not to vanish. Not with rage, not with rumors, but with proof. Rachel never threw another party. There were no posts, no public statements, no final goodbye. Just a woman with an empty business, a reputation bleeding out in silence, and a name tied to a man she thought would fade quietly. I didn't show up at the closing. Didn't need to. The moment that permanently closed sign hit the glass, I had already gotten everything I came for. Not just the money, not just the justice, but the knowledge that the version of me she underestimated, that's the version who stood tall when the lights went out. The news spread fast after the closure. You'd think in a town like ours people would move on quick. New gossip, new drama, someone else's mess. But not this time. This time people remembered. Not because of the business itself, but because of how clean the fall was.
No explosions. No scandal.
Just a quiet dismantling of a story that had been carefully curated for too long. Rachel tried to relaunch under a different name. The Glow Collective. New logo, new colors, fresh taglines about transformation and new beginnings. She even rented a smaller space on the edge of town. It didn't take. The minute she went live with the new branding, comments flooded in. Subtle, sharp, and unrelenting. You can change the name, but not the story. Did the collective sign contracts this time? Still stealing light, huh? Within a week, she locked the page. Then deleted it. I didn't have to lift a finger. Her history did the work for me. A few of her remaining friends stopped showing up in pictures. The kind of people who show up when cameras flash but vanish when the foundation cracks. Vendors started ignoring her emails. One even posted indirectly about how they no longer work with individuals who don't honor their partnerships.